Number 1, the line graph shows the percent of cars for sale at a used car lot on a given day by model year. For what model year is the percent of cars for sale the smallest? So our y-axis here is the percent of cars for sale. If you follow over the smallest, that is about 4%, and that is in 2014. For a particular machine that produces beads, 29 out of every 100 beads it produces have a defect. Sounds like a terrible machine, but a bead produced by the machine will be selected at random. What is the probability of selecting a bead that has a defect? So the 29 goes on top, the 100 goes on bottom. You can't really simplify that. C. Here we have what's called a transversal. This line crosses M and N, which we are told are parallel. They want to know what is the value of x. So there exists this relationship where if down here is 33, so is here, and so is here, and so is here. And then the others are supplementary. So you take 180 minus 33, and you get 147 in all of those existing places. The answer is D. Number 4, we have a graph, and they want to know what is the y-intercept. That is, where does the graph cross the y-axis, and that is right here. So that is the coordinate 0, 8, which is D. The total cost, f of x in dollars, to lease a car for 36 months from a particular car dealership is given by this equation, where x is the monthly payment in dollars. What is the total cost to lease a car when the monthly payment is $400? So that is 36 times 400 plus 1,000. If you do that multiplication in addition, you get 15,400. Each side of a square has a length of 45. And what is the perimeter of this square? Well, 45 times 4, which is 180. To solve number 7, we're going to have to multiply by the quantity x plus 6 on both sides. It cancels out over here on the left. And at that point, we might as well move the 55 over as well, because we're going to set everything equal to 0. So we distribute x times x, and that gives us x squared. X times 6, that gives us 6x. And when we subtract 55, all of this is equal to 0. So this is a factoring problem. If you're familiar with the x method, we're looking for two numbers, then multiply to give us negative 55, and add to give us 6. There's only so many factors of 55, as it turns out. So it's probably going to be something about 11 and 5, which works pretty well because they're 6 apart. One of them has to be negative. It's going to be this one. That way when you add them together, you still get 6. So I can rewrite this right side of the equation as x plus 11 times x minus 5. This is an equivalent form, or the factored form. And when is this equal to 0? When you plug in a negative 11 or when you plug in a positive 5? They want to know is the positive solution. So the answer is just 5. We have two data sets, dataset X and Y. Which statement correctly compares the mean of the first to the mean of the second? Well, the first four values are all the same. And dataset Y has a 27 in it. That's going to bring the average up. So the dataset Y has a mean that's greater. The way they write it, though, X is less than Y. B. There's a variety of ways to solve this. You could break it down for x and then work backwards from there. I like to think of how do you get from here to there. You multiply both sides by 4. So 4 times 4x plus 2 is equal to 12 times 4. And that tells you that this side is 16x plus 8, and this side is 48, and we jump straight to the answer. Number 12, we have an object kicked from a platform. We have the standard gravity type equation involved, and h is the height, t seconds after it's kicked. Which number represents the height in meters from which the object was kicked? That's going to be the starting value. When you plug in 0 for time, that's where you start out, and that's going to be 9. Number 13, you can solve a couple of different ways. If you wanted to solve this via graph, You could plug this in, and you could do so either on a graphing calculator or on Desmos. And either way you do it, you're going to have a parabola that looks kind of like this. It's a very rough sketch. And down here at the bottom, you're looking for the vertex. That's where the minimum point will be. And whether you calculate the minimum via the graphing calculator or you just click on it via Desmos, that's going to be 6.25 comma negative 30.25. So for what value of x does it reach its minimum? That would be the first one. You can also solve this algebraically. If you look at the formula for a vertex, which is where you find the minimum point, it's going to be negative b over 2a for the x-coordinate, and f of negative b over 2a for the y-coordinate. So here our b value is negative 50, so we're going to put in negative 50, and our a value is 4, so divided by 4 times 2. So this is 50 over 8, or 25 over 4. Whether you write it as 6.25 or the fraction, both are correct. This is a system word problem. We have a small business owner with a budget of $2,200, and they must purchase a minimum of 200 candles, and then we have some price per candles. So the 4.9 represents the small candles, the 11.6 represents the large candles, and we have to spend $2,200, I guess, or less, so I would write it like that. And then the total number of candles added together has to be a minimum of 200 candles. So it could be more than 200, but greater than or equal to 200. They want to know what's the maximum number of large candles the owner can purchase to stay within budget and maintain the discounted pricing. An important thing to note here is that you could do this with just equal signs, because that will allow you to find the maximum. One method is to graph this. If you're in Desmos and you graph this, you will have two lines that will cross up here somewhere, kind of like this. Let's try again, kind of like this. And that intersection is at 17.91 and 182.09. What does that tell you? That tells you that if you had exactly 17.91 small candles and 182.09 large candles, you're being as efficient as possible. However, can you buy part of a candle? No. So we're going to take the large candle and round down to the nearest whole number, 182. One way to solve this algebraically is to use elimination. So we're going to multiply the entire bottom equation by a specific number to set up that when we add straight down, some of the variables are canceled out. So I'm going to choose negative 4.9. And after I multiply, I can kind of cross this one out because it's the same equation, I just rewrote it. And now I'm going to add all three straight down. The s's go away, and I'm left with 6.7L is equal to 1220. I would get that same value, that L is equal to 182.089, etc., etc., etc. And we want the largest whole number, so it's 182. In the linear function f of 0 is equal to 8, so that's like the coordinate 0, 8. F of 1 is equal to 12. Which of these equations defines f? So as x goes up 1, y goes up 4. So our slope is 4 over 1. So that rules out this one. All three of these have a slope of 4. And my b value is going to be 8. So that's right here, d. Number 16, the function f of w is equal to 6w squared gives the area of a rectangle in square feet if its width is w feet and its length is 6 times its width. Which of the following is the best interpretation of f of 14 is equal to 1176? When we plug in f of 14, we're going to plug 14 in for w. And the total area will be the output, 1176. So we're looking for width is 14, area is 1176. The ones that say width is 1176 are backwards. And the problem with B is it describes the length, not the area. That's why A is correct. The circle shown has center O, circumference 144 pi, and diameters PR and QS. The length of arc PS, so this arc here, is twice the length of arc PQ, so this one here. So we'll call that 2x and we'll call this x. Because these are diameters, the same thing is going to be true over here. So if I look at my entire arc, I have 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1. That's going to be 6x, and that's going to be equal to 144 pi. If I divide by 6, I find that a single x is 24 pi. They want to know about QR. QR is going to be 2 times this. so that's going to be 48 pi. A company that provides whale watching tours takes groups of 21 people at a time. The company's revenue is $80 per adult and $60 per child, so 80A plus 60C is equal to 1440. And then A plus C is equal to 21. We could graph, we could use elimination, we could use substitution. We want to know the children, so let's cancel out A. So let's take this second equation and change it to 21 minus C. And let's then plug that in here for the first one. So I get this after distributing, and once I move this to the other side, I get this, and C ends up being 12. All right, the final leg, part 3 of 3, number 19. The function h is defined by h of x is equal to 4x plus 28. The graph of y is equal to h of x in the xy plane has an x-intercept at a0 and a y-intercept at 0b, where a and b are constants. What is the value of their sum? So first of all, when they say y is equal to h of x, that means they're the same function. So if my x-intercept is blank 0, that means I plug in a 0 over here, and I solve. So negative 28 is equal to 4x, or x is equal to negative 7. For my y-intercept, that means I plug in a 0 here. 4 times 0 plus 28, that one's going to be 28. If I add 28 and negative 7 together, I get 21. Number 20, the first step is to look for common factors in each of these terms. You'll notice that the x terms all have at least one x, and the numbers are all divisible by 2. So you can factor out a 2x. So this is an equivalent form of the original expression with 2x factored out. The next step is to factor the remaining expression. And I like to use the x method, where I look for two numbers that multiply to give me 104 that add to give me 21. And just kind of guess and check. It turns out that 13 times 8 gives me 104, and 13 plus 8 gives me 21. So I can rewrite this part as x plus 13 times x plus 8. And now I have factored this expression into 3 different terms, 2x, x plus 13, and x plus 8. They want to know what's the smallest possible value of b. Well, we're looking at 8 or 13. Which one's smaller? The answer is 8. Number 21. In the given system of equations, a is a positive constant. The system has exactly one distinct real solution. What is the value of a? So we can replace y with what it's equal to, and we can say negative 1.5 is equal to x squared plus 8x plus a. And if we add 1.5 to both sides, we have 0 is equal to x squared plus 8x plus 1.5 plus a. Since we have exactly one distinct real solution, that means we're looking for a perfect square trinomial. Because in these early examples, like plus 13 plus 8, there's two distinct solutions. It's only when it's the exact same, like let's say x plus 4 and x plus 4, now we have exactly one solution, even though there's two terms. So that's what we're looking for, a perfect square trinomial. And if you recall from when we did the circle unit, we start with the 8, and we want to take that divided by 2 squared. And we want to make our c value that. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. If I square it, that's 16. So all of this should be equal to 16. A is going to be 14.5. I think it also would accept 29 over 2. Why is that the right answer? Because now we have x plus 4. Wow, did I really pick the right answer without looking at that? Times x plus 4 is equal to 0. And they're both going to be negative 4, so that's why there's only one real solution. Number 22, here's our function, which table of values represents y is equal to f of x minus 3. Well, let's see, if we plug in a negative 6 here, that's going to give us 0. So to see as a y, we should get negative 3, because it's 0 minus 3. That's not negative 3. That's not negative 3. It's either b or c. Let's try the same thing here. If I plug in a negative 5, it should give me 0. So this should be negative 3. This one is not negative 3. The answer is b. For exponential equations, we're going to have our principal, we're going to multiply that by our growth factor, and then we're going to have this to a power of time. Some people call this PERT, where this is your exponential ratio. In this case, if we're decreasing by 45%, we can think of that as 100 minus 45 divided by 100. So it's like we're multiplying by 0.55. And 14 should be here in the principal position. That's why C is our answer. 24, the graph of y is equal to f of x plus 14 is shown. Which equation defines f? So I'm looking at my intercept, and it's at 2. So that means the intercept of the original should be negative 12, because negative 12 plus 14 is equal to 2. That's why it's A. One gallon of paint will cover 220 square feet of a surface. A room has a total wall area of W square feet, which represents the total amount of paint in gallons needed to paint the walls of the room twice. So W times 2, and then 1 gallon of paint will cover every 220 square feet. So we're going to divide by 220, and that tells us our equation. We can simplify this and say W divided by 110. So it's like saying the total square feet divided by 220, which tells you how many cans, but each one you have to do twice. So that's why it's half of 220. A. So for the first part, if number A is 110% greater, that's like 100 plus 110 divided by 100. Or in other words, A is equal to 2.1 B. Because the amount greater is more than double. That's what 110% greater means. Then they tell us that B is 90% less than 47. So that's like 100 minus 90 over 100, meaning it's going to be B is equal to 0.1 times 47. So B is equal to 4.7. You just move the decimal place over. And if we multiply this by 2.1, we get our answer, because that's what you do to figure out A. A is equal to 2.1 times 4.7. So that was a little too premature, but we're plugging in that. And we get that A is equal to 9.87.